Hey guys, it's Jay here, and today we're going to talk about the greatest and latest amplifier technology, the GaNFet transistors. So GaNFet transistors, for those of you that don't know, is a replacement for silicon transistors, and it's promised to be faster, more efficient, and lower in distortion, all that. And funny enough, they're actually used in chargers now, which I use to charge all my gear, and they do in fact charge more efficiently and faster, even though those chargers are more expensive. And that's the theme with GaNFet design, is that because they're relatively new, the prices are still relatively high for the GaNFet modules. And so we had the AGD Audience, which were my favorite amplifier. I gave this the 2024 Amplifier Award, Hi-Fi Component Award, and this remains as one of my references to this date. And the story with this one is that, well, the GaNFet module inside is actually in the tube here, and it's actually interchangeable. So if there's better modules in the future, it's replaceable. So that's the main theme here. And of course, the GaNFet module being designed ground up by AGD. And this was honestly probably one of the best amplifiers I've heard to date, like I said. And here now we have the latest GaNFet monoblock from Laiv. This is the GaNM amplifier. And they're pretty chunky. Now, I feel like I've talked a lot about the build quality with Laiv gear in general, starting with their Laiv Harmony and the UDAC as well. They're just built phenomenally well, both on the outside and in the inside. It's built to almost like AccuPhase level. And when I say it's built phenomenally well, I don't mean that, because it's just a chunk of aluminum. I mean, in virtually all high-end amplifiers these days, you get chunk of aluminum that's very high build quality. And even at affordable prices, you get chunk of aluminum. So to be clear, I'm not saying this is high build quality because it's chunk of aluminum. We get that at a variety of price points these days. But what I'm trying to say here is that because I get so many components in here, speakers, amplifiers, stacks, you name it, and I see variety of build quality levels at all the different price points, this one is a standout for me. Like the Laiv gear, all in general, not just this amplifier, but in general, is a standout for me because of the fit and finish. It's just done phenomenally well. Like I said, it's like AccuPhase, Luxman, stuff I saw in Japan type of level and care and attention that went into the design of this amplifier. I can tell. Even compared to my AGD Audion monoblocks, which is almost double the price in this special finish compared to these, almost double the price, but the build quality is substantially similar. And that extends to the inside as well. In the inside, you're going to get the custom GaNFet module by Laiv, as well as their custom switching module power supply. And you know what this reminds me of? This actually reminds me of like one of my favorite amplifiers of all time, the Kenwood L07M. Those were a beast, and I still have them in the basement, but they need to be refurbished. But yeah, they remind me of that. Like they're compact, short signal path, makes everything, think about it. Because of the size of this amplifier, like from input to output, how much signal path can there be? It's tiny. But despite the size of these amplifiers with GaNFet modules, the whole thing here is that you're getting more power, more efficient, clean, low distortion power in a small form factor. Class D, baby, Class D. But that was always the promise, and when I entered this hobby, that was the promise. And as a young audiophile, I gravitated towards Class D designs because they were lighter, more efficient, they didn't produce heat, and they had heaps amounts of power for less money. So as a young audiophile, I was all for that when I entered this hobby. But when I tried it and compared it to some, Class AB designs, Class A designs, tube amplifiers, and so on, it just didn't sound good. It just didn't add up to the promise that I was promised. And I have to be honest, I became one of those audiophiles that looked down on Class D regardless of the design. I was like, Class D, not for me. And, that's until after more than a decade, I found this, well, not this, but I found this, the AGD Audience, right? And I got a lot of flack from people saying that, it's because of the tube here that, is playing psychoacoustic on me and making it sound like, it's more tubey to my ears or my brain. But that's not the case. I already knew, guys, that this was a tube, it's not real tube. Like, I can tell a difference between, like, you don't have to be an engineer to figure this out. We know this is not a true tube design. It's not a tube design, period. So let's get that out of the way. But what I was so impressed about is the fact that I could not tell that this was a Class D design. It didn't have that dry hit. It didn't have that clinicalness. It didn't have that lean, lifeless type of sound that I did not enjoy in Class D amplifiers back when. So this was revolutionary for me, right? Exactly what was promised a few years ago. Small, compact, high power, high current, can drive virtually any speaker out there, and it sounds great. Sounds as good as other Class A or AB designs. Different, but still not with the, typical drawbacks of the Class D sound that I got. So that's what started the whole mesmerization, right? And then I got other GaNFet amplifiers in here, and that was so confusing for me, right? Because I had the Orchard Audio amplifier in here for review, and to be fair, they did bring power, and a lot of people enjoy the sound as well. But for me, and I'm talking strictly in a personal sense, it didn't have the same type of musicality as my AGD audience. And I was kind of hoping for that for the fraction of the price that I'm paying, that I would get something that I can recommend to people that would be far less pricey than the AGD audience, because let's admit it, the AGD audience is pretty expensive. But that was not what I got with Orchard Audio. With Orchard Audio, I got more of that clinical Class D kind of dry upper mid-range still. And so that confused me, because I thought, well, maybe all GaNFet, after my experience with AGD, I thought maybe all GaNFet should be sounding less clinical, more musical and smooth and, layering and all that kind of stuff that I like. But that's not what I got with the Orchard Audio, unfortunately. Great amplifiers, just not for me. Okay, so now that we are up to speed, that's when these guys enter, right? This is, again, the Laiv Harmony Monoblocks that is GaNFet module based and GaNFet technology based. And I have to say, these guys really get close, scary close to the AGD audience. Now, still not inexpensive, but almost at the half price point of the AGD audience I have here in the special finish. And they are fairly similar in terms of the overall sound signature. They are fairly similar in what they give. To me, they both don't sound like a typical Class D amplifier. There is not a hint, and I repeat, not a hint of brightness, shrillness, upper mid-range glare or dryness that I find in other Class D amplifiers in the past. None of that exists here with these two amplifiers, and I can say that pretty confidently because I've lived with both of them for over past a year now, with variety of speakers and gear chains and so on. And so there are differences as well as similarities. And similarities, like I said, they can be both inviting, easy to listen to, don't have the typical Class D drawbacks, and they can handle low impedances, high current, can drive virtually any speaker out there, etc., etc. But in terms of the differences, I find that the Laiv Harmony monoblock here has a little bit more heft in the bass, is a little bit more warmer, and in terms of those bass notes, it just is a little bit more fuller and bolder and rounder and punches a little bit harder, more dynamically than the AGD audience. But when it comes to the mid-range and treble, that's when the page flip a little bit, and the AGD audience is going to be a little bit more of a preference thing here, but more of my preference in terms of detail retrieval and nuance. It's going to excel at that. It's known to excel at that. So while it has less warmth in that mid-range than the Laiv monoblocks here, it's just going to be a little bit more nuanced and detailed than the Laiv monoblocks. Now that's not to say the Laiv monoblocks don't have detail or nuance, or that they're dark or veiled sounding. None of that is true. It's just the fact that the little difference with the AGD Audion is that at the expense of a little bit less heft in the bass and boldness in the bass that these have, they actually have a little bit more of a nuanced, detailed mid-range and treble that audiophiles can appreciate without the glare and without the brightness and without the forwardness of other Class D amplifiers. And this is a bit crazy to me, but another fact to check here is that the power output of the Laiv here is actually double the power of my AGD audience. So almost half the price, double the power. 400 watts into 4 ohms, 200 watts into 4 ohms. Now, I really record this as more of my diary, kind of like cataloging my experiences in my system with different gear. But I'm sure a lot of you out there still doesn't understand the full kind of sound profile of the Laiv, amplifier here, and you want a little bit more description. So I kind of thought about this, right? So the best description that I can give about these amplifiers is that whatever you got with the Laiv DACs, so the Laiv harmony, the Laiv UDAC, the similar type of sound signature that I described to be very similar to like Accuphase, in that it's linear with the right amount of warmth and has tons of layering that Artois DACs are known for, with great focus and imagery. That's exactly what you get with this amplifier, but more amplified, pun intended. So whatever layering that you got with your Laiv harmony or UDAC, or whatever warmth and inviting nature that you got, all that, you get that even more in your system when you put this amplifier in. So that's kind of how I would describe it. They all, like I said, have similar sound signature, mostly neutral with a hint of warmth, but a little bit more warmer, I would say, with the GaNamp than the Laiv other Laiv gears tuning. I would say it's slightly more warmer of a tonality here, but overall you're getting a slight warmer tone, mostly neutral, great nuance to the sound, great textures to the sound, and most importantly, great layering to the sound. The layering that you get with the Laiv DACs, you get that in spades with this amplifier. It is very, very close to the layering I get with my AGD Audience. And that says a lot because I like the AGD Audience layering more than my Accuphase sometimes. And for those of you that have no idea what I'm talking about with layering, it's a soundstage descriptor. And last video, when I tried to describe what layering was in my video, someone commented that, when I talked about harmonics of a guitar plucking and stuff like that, they thought I was talking about tonality. But I want you to hear me very carefully here. It's a soundstage descriptor. So in a soundstage, you get normally a wide and a deep soundstage with a lot of amplifiers and gear these days, right? They're very good in that way, which is awesome. But what I'm trying to talk about is the three-dimensional soundstage that you get from front to back, right? And how the instruments are placed, not in a single 2D space where it's like a wall of sound with guitar in front of you and the singer in the middle and so on and so forth, but a three-dimensional soundstage where the guitar is a little bit forward. You can tell that the guitar is more forward than the singer, and it's sometimes more popped out, right? So it's almost like a holography is how I see it, right? It's like almost holography of the stage and the performance taking place, and it places those instruments and singers right in your room, and it's a phenomenal experience. But when I talked about the harmonics of a guitar, when I pluck a guitar and the harmonics that follow, because plucking a guitar isn't a single note, but the harmonics that follow that makes up that realism of the guitar, what I was trying to say there is that layering isn't just about placing instruments, in a three-dimensional space instead of a 2D, space, two-dimensional space. It's not just about that, at least for me. When I listen to music and when I hear layering, it also stems from a single instrument in space as well. So when the guitar is plucked, that pluck propagates, right? When you pluck a guitar in the real world, it goes from loud to quiet, right? And there's different tone and harmonics that go do, right? Well, it doesn't go do, but you get the point. I am terrible with sound effects, but you get the point. There's a propagation of that sound, and that propagation fills the space between the next instrument and the singer and creates this space, right? Sense of realistic space. Because in the real world, things don't sound just clean cut. It's not like doom. It doesn't end that way. It goes doom, right? So that it just fills up that gap in space, and that makes it sound more enjoyable. And sometimes that propagation, depending on how the recording was recorded, with the right gear, you can hear the propagation from you and the speakers, where like Electrified is a great example. It's an electronic music, but still you get that propagation of those, electronic synthesizers going, and it just kind of propagates to you from the system, and now you're getting something that is truly musical, truly enveloping, truly engaging, at least for me. So that's what I was trying to describe with layering, and that is one of the hallmarks that I feel like was missing with Class D amplifiers, with Hypex, Purify. They all kind of created this two-dimensional kind of wall of sound and very dynamic, heaps amount of power, but didn't have that kind of musicality that I was looking for with layering, nuance in the details, you know, the typical stuff that audiophiles look for, that obsess over. That was what was missing. And now not only do we get the tonality that I wanted in a Class D amplifier, but you get that layering and that nuance and that audiophile things that you would get from Class A or AB amplifiers. In fact, I compare these to Class A, Class AB amplifiers all day long, and never once was I like, oh, they're so much inferior to, you know, Class A and AB designs. They're so inferior to my Accuphase. I have to switch them. I can't hear them. No, oh God, my audiophileness does not allow this. Not once, never. And here's a little tip with these. Add a good tube preamplifier like the Galleon Navy, and now you're in for a real treat. And I know a lot of you guys already used your Class D amplifiers with a tube preamplifier. It's not like a secret that I found out. It's just something a lot of people do and have enjoyed. And people do this with Hypex modules and Purify modules. They recommended me to do it, and I've done it. And as you guys probably know from my documentation on this channel, that I personally haven't found the same amount of success. I still find the Class D sound to be still there, although it's much easier to live with a tube preamplifier in the chain to kind of mask that glare or dryness and, you know, Class D-ness, right, so to speak. But with these, it's not like that. There's nothing that you're masking or trying to get rid of. You're just simply amplifying what is already there. So with tube preamplifiers, you're just getting more of that layering. You're getting more of that warmth. You're getting more of that spaciousness and holographic three-dimensional soundstage. And you're just adding more to it. You're not masking anything. You're not trying to get rid of anything the amplifier has that you don't want, like a glare or dryness and so on. So yeah, I personally found huge success running tube preamplifiers with GaNFet monoblocks. Specifically, these two GaNFet monoblocks. But yeah, that's pretty much it from me. I hope this video was helpful and enjoyable. And if it was, let me know in the comment section. And let me know if you have any questions in the comment section. I'll try to answer all your questions. And yeah, all I ask is that you click that like button and subscribe to this channel. And I'll see you guys on my next one. Until next time, peace.